Hello everyone, it's February 14th, 2012. Of course, it's Valentine's Day today, but even more important than Valentine's Day, it's Harp Tuesday. Had a very busy couple of weeks and was hoping to do an episode every week about the Greensleeves, arranging Greensleeves project, but just was too busy, and I have the next variation. I've written it, but it's not quite in shape enough to play for you guys yet. So instead, what I thought I would do this week is talk about chords, just some basic understanding of chords, because as I was talking about arranging Greensleeves, I would be referencing chords and what you could do in terms of putting chords underneath a tune. So I thought I would just do sort of a very basic theory look at what chords are and how to approach them on the harp. So if you take up any particular key, so let's take the key of C, we've got all naturals, and there are three major chords. I mean, what a chord is, you could play a bunch of random notes at the same time. You know, it sounds kind of weird, it sounds kind of interesting too, but what we typically think of as a chord is notes that fit together. So that sounds really nice together. And a sound like that is a major chord sound. You know, it sounds happy, it sounds nice. We get There's also a minor chord which sounds kind of sad or kind of scary or and those are the building blocks of most music. And then, of course, especially say in jazz, you might start to get all these sevenths chords and sixes and nines and crazy stuff like that. But we're just going to look at major and minor chords and a brief look at sevenths. So in both cases, those chords consist of three different notes. So let's take a C major chord. It's C, an E, and a G. Just those three notes. And anytime we play those three notes, you know, some combination of those three notes, we're playing a C chord. In any particular key, so we're in the key of C, there are going to be three major chords and three minor chords. So let's just start on this C. We're in the key of C, so of course C is a major chord. Let's start on the C and find out what happens if we just play this position. See this nice position where we're the root and a third, so that we're skipping a string each time. If we move up, oh, there's a minor chord, another minor chord, a major chord, another major chord, a minor chord, and something kind of weird. And then back to C. So in any key we have these three majors and three minors. And you can think of them in relation to the root. So if we think of the C chord as 1, then F is 4. So here's 1, 2, 3, fourth string up. And G is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 4, 5. You might have heard people talk about, a 1, 4, 5 chord progression. That just means you're playing the root, so whatever key you're in. If you're in the key of F, for example, if we've got a B flat now, here's the 1, and then here's the 4, in this case a B flat, and here's the 5, a C. Or back to C again. And in the key of C, if you were playing the alternative, the minor key, like if we were in a minor key and we had no sharps and no flats, so if we're in major, we'd call it C major. The corresponding minor key is a third below whatever key we're in. So we're in the key of C. A third below that is this A minor. And it has that same progression of 1, 4, 5 as well. We can find all the 3 minor keys by looking at the 1, that third beneath the major key root, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, so this D minor, and then 5 is the E minor. So as you play stuff and just sort of notice the characteristics of the keys, hopefully that starts to make sense, and that you notice, yeah, whenever I'm in the key of C, I've got these nice major chords. And I got these nice minor chords as well. Let's just talk briefly about the difference between a major and a minor chord, because it has to do with, and again, if we're looking at starting on the first note of the chord, it has to do with this third, with the note that 2 is playing. And it's easier to see on the piano in many ways, because we see all the steps. But if we were to make this third an E flat, we would have a minor chord. We'd have a C minor and C major. If we were to take this A minor and raise the third half a step to C sharp, so from So basically, if you're playing a chord and you want to change it from a major to a minor, you would lower that third half a tone. And if you want to change it from a minor to a major, you would raise that third half a tone. So those are, as I say, are the building blocks. In a lot of music, you're just going to have the, say, the 1, 4, 5. Those are the chords that are going to be played. And ideally, you want to be familiar with the positions. I'm going to talk about something called inversions. So if we think of this as the root, is the first basic chord. If we take these notes but move it up so that the thumb is playing the C, we're going to take the C from down here, we're going to move it up here. So these two notes stay the same. That's a C chord, first inversion. And again, we're playing these same notes, but we're just moving the position slightly. And then second inversion is if we take this E and move it up to this higher E here. And then we're back, we move this G up to here, and we're back where we started, but just an octave higher. And I guess what you want to be, I noticed this, I was thinking about this before the episode, that I play the piano a little bit. I've never had lessons, but just it translates from playing the harp. And I know that for me, oftentimes there are certain inversions or certain ways I want to play a chord. Like let's say I'm just playing the tune with the right hand and I'm just chording underneath it with the left hand. It doesn't necessarily come naturally to me to be able to find, like if I've just played this, to be able to find, I don't know, maybe a C chord. And the easiest place to play the C chord would just be to move it down into this first inversion, but rather than, for example, let's say that every time you felt you had to play the basic root position. And that involves a lot of bouncing around then. What is helpful is to be able to be in any position, play this chord, and to be able to, from there, know how to play, say, I don't know, an A minor. We're going to play it, we don't have to go and find a root position. We can just find the inversion that's closest. So a very helpful thing to do can be just to practice, and you could do it, move up to the minor if you want. I think I talked about the salsato conditioning exercises in the episode about finger independence. But again, a lot of them are just based around moving up in a major key. So you're going, for example, and now we're switching to this G, C, F, C, F, G, C again. And something like that certainly helps your hand get familiar with these chord positions, because, as I say, there's just these three inversions, these three positions that your hand is going to take when you're playing chords. So all that can help build a familiarity with how chords are shaped and help you use them. Something that also can be interesting is just to take a piece of music. Often piano music, for example, will have chords in it. It'll say the chords. So play around with maybe playing the tune with the right hand and chords with the left hand, or just look at that chord progression with both hands and play around with, like, maybe they're changing chords every 2 beats or something, and you could be playing around with, maybe it's C, maybe it's this 1-4-5. You can be playing around with 2 different C inversions. Just getting used to seeing chords, seeing them on the page, finding different inversions, and switching from chord to chord, possibly in the most efficient way, without having to, jump around a bunch, but also practicing jumping around a bunch, So you can do a lot of fun things with that. And the final very basic thing about chords, I mentioned sevenths, and seventh chords are ones where you actually have 4 notes in the chord. So all these chords, these major and minor chords, just have 3 notes. The root, the third above, and the third above that, or the third and the fifth, if you want to think of it that way. The seventh throws in the seventh note, right? So we have the 1, the 3, the 5, and then the 7. Or I guess we should do that in let's get back into C. That had a flat, that would be in the key of F, for example. So now we have 4 tones, and 7th chords call out for a resolution. So any of these major chords, without any context, they just sound like a chord. They don't suggest that we're moving in any particular direction harmonically. But a 7th chord says, from here, we should be resolving into the root chord. In this case, we're in the key of C. Right? Doesn't that sound nice? Here we go. Or that C7 that I played before with a B flat. So that 7 then drives us into the 1. And again, in any particular key, without any, if we haven't changed anything or, no accidentals. So in the key of C, all naturals, there will be 1 7th chord, and it's the 5. It's the G chord with that 7th note in it. And that's the only 7th that's going to sound good in the key of C. For example, here's that C 7th, but because we don't have a B flat, sounds kind of peculiar. If we get in the key of F, we have this B flat, and now this G 7th. Well, it's kind of nice, but it's not this 7th chord. It's a G minor or something. But we have this C7. So the 7ths are kind of interesting because, as I say, they do drive you towards a particular chord of resolution, unlike any other chord, which just relies on the context. Obviously, in the context, if we keep hearing, or if we keep hearing something, we hear, oh, we're in the key of C, we're in a particular key, then we do eventually want to keep coming back to that C. But anyway, 7ths are fun too. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea about chords and how they work, and maybe some things to practice. Perhaps not, but just also in terms of doing arrangements and putting chords underneath a tune. And hopefully, I'm planning to do next week, do perhaps the last episode on arranging Greensleeves. And in the meantime, take care, and I will see you hopefully in a week's time. Cheers.